My name is Dee. I'm from Bristol, and no, I'm not from Bristol. I live in Bristol, and I'm from Sweden, Stockholm, and Somalia. I don't know how to answer when people ask me where I'm from.
What do you do? What's your role, like in terms of this project?
In terms of this project, I am the commissioned artist slash filmmaker. So going into the project, when we first applied, I was interested in sort of the sense of community that public laundrettes bring. I remember spending loads of time with my mum in laundrettes, like whole days, because we had to do like a family of sevens, like laundry. And like on Saturdays at 11, we'd had like a slot. We'd sit in there for hours, and my mum would bring like tea and thermos, and all the other ladies that had the same slot as her. We had like a little community hangout every week. So that's kind of what I was interested in exploring. And the idea of respectability around clothes, what clothes are considered respectable and for what reasons. So what I started thinking about when I first started thinking about the type of laundry I was doing during lockdown, as soon as lockdown lifted, I'd realised I hadn't worn Western clothing, as in jeans or t-shirts or shirts, in the entire 3 months that we were locked down. I spent all my time in Somali clothing. They were more comfortable, and that's what I've always worn at home. And all our entire load became Somali clothing, like Baatis and sarongs and stuff like that. So all my regular outdoor clothes were clean the entire time, so I never had to wash them. And it made me think a little bit about why I wear them indoors and why I don't really go outside in those clothes. I've always worn them indoors. I've never seen anyone wearing those type of clothes outside. And a couple of years ago in Somalia, and I found that people were wearing them outside, because why wouldn't they be? They wouldn't be wearing Western clothing if they're not in the West. So they were wearing the type of clothes that I've started to associate with pajamas and like comfortable clothes in banks and in offices and on buses and places I didn't expect to see them. And it made me think and reflect on why I and everyone else like me, like second generation Somalis, had sort of relegated, I don't know if that's the right word, those type of clothes to the private sphere. It was a tower house in Easton, so I knew it's gonna have a big Somali community, and it served me a little bit. I really thought that I could maybe convince one of them to be on camera, to be interviewed, but they were like, no, we're happy to speak to you, but we don't want to be recorded. But yeah, they had there's a few women down there, and they were helping each other out, helping each other with more than just laundry. They were talking about each other's kids and stuff, and being like, oh, that one gets school okay, and how's this been, and how is his exams doing, or whatever. They were like all really connected, and they weren't just connected to each other, which was a bit of a surprise. I thought that the Somali people would stick with the Somali people, but they were like Jamaican residents and Sudanese residents that I saw, and they were all like really tight knit, and they all knew each other. That was really lovely to see. Such a diverse like community that have no problem like with like, let's say, cultural barriers or anything like that. So when we got there first, because I came to interview Sam, and Sam hadn't come downstairs yet, so I knocked on someone else let me in, and a different Somali lady let me into the building, and then 2 Somali women let me into the laundrette, and I explained to them what I was doing, and they were like, do you want us to go get Sam for you? They already knew Sam, and they were like, yeah, he's so chatty, he's the only person that around here that's willing to do stuff like that. So they were familiar with him, and then when he came down, like they all said their hellos, but he was like busy trying to get his washing in. And when the 2 women left and went upstairs, he realized that the dryer had finished for them, and he brought them all out, and he knew kind of what they were, and he folded them and he put them aside, and he put his own washing in. And I think when I asked him about it, I think he knew whose washing it was, like which one of the 2 ladies' washing it was, and like he put it carefully aside, he folded it really carefully. So there was a few people in there, but I know for a fact that it was a Somali families, because it had the men's the Somali sarongs, and different cultures wear sarongs, so it could be like Bangladeshi or Sudanese or whatever, but it was definitely a Somali one because the same exact fabric, that exact fabric is used for a lot of them. They're very similar looking. So it was a Somali man's sarong and a Somali woman's Baatis in there, as well as kids' clothes. It was like a Somali families, and it's really easy for me to identify, even whilst it was in the load.
And how does it feel when you
see someone who isn't? Yeah, it was weird. I haven't seen Somali clothing in the hands of someone that wasn't Somali, and it doesn't seem like a big deal, but it weirdly was, because it just seems like it's out of context. It's like when you see a celebrity out of context, like on a tube. It's not wrong, it's just weird. You did not expect that. I wouldn't change it for the world, the way I grew up. I would never want like a washing machine in the house. Even now, I think it's a shame that I don't have like a communal laundry room, like, because we lived in a tower block as well growing up. So it's almost the exact same situation, but in a different country. And it was at the bottom of, just like for them, the bottom of the tower was a laundry room and a key, and you have your slot. And it was nice to know that that's what we did on Saturday mornings. We don't really have many moments like that left. In terms of like knowing your neighbours. People don't really know their neighbours as well anymore. There aren't any reasons to, like, it's a big city, any reason to be forced to get to know your neighbours, I would take it. Forced is the wrong word. Allowed.